I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 3rd, 2012 Single Family Design Board to attendance. Kathleen, if you could call roll, please.
Chair Dyson?
Here.
Denise Willard?
Here.
Bernie Bernstein? Here. Brian Miller?
Here.
Fred Sweeney?
Here.
Jim Zimmerman?
I think he'll be here right now. All right, thank you. At this point, I'd like to open up public comment. Any member of the public may address the Single Family Design Board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled for public discussion before the board today. Not seeing anybody jump up. I'll close public comment and bring to item number B, or letter B, approval of the minutes for SFDB meeting December 5th, 2011. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes? First by Fred, second by Bernie. And let's go item by item and make sure we have any corrections or comments. So the first item was 912 Media Road. Any comments on the minutes? Second item is 2465 Calle Almonte. Third item is 1121 Walnut Avenue. Any comments or corrections? And the fourth item was 909 Calle Cortita. Any comments or correction on any item on the agenda? Okay, so I'll take a vote. All those in favor of the minutes? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? None. Motion carries. I'd like to bring it to the consent calendar for December 12th, 2011. Michelle, could you read? Can I have a motion for approval of the calendar for 2000? Jim, first, and seconded by?
I'll second.
by Denise. And Michelle, if you could read the calendar for December 12th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Consent agenda for Monday, December 12th, 2011. It's item A, 1422 San Miguel Avenue. Project was granted final approval with conditions. Item B, 1020 Placido Avenue. It's granted project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item C, 1312 North Salsopuedes Street. It's granted project design approval and final approval as submitted. And item D, 654 Circle Drive, was granted project design approval and final approval as submitted with the MPO findings. And the items were reviewed by, and item E, 241 Conejo Road, was granted final approval as submitted of the landscaping, and consent items were reviewed by Jim Zimmerman and Denise Woolery.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments on any of the items on the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
on
Bernie?
item A, 1422
San Miguel. I guess this is a question for staff. Did this ever come before the board?
And that received project design approval by the full board.
Case then. Thank you.
The date was June 20th, 2011, it says. So, any other comments on any item on that agenda? I'll take a vote for approval of the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? None. Motion carries. We'll move to the approval of the calendar for January 3rd, 2012. Do I have a motion for approval of the calendar? By Fred and seconded by Jim. And Michelle, if you could read the
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent agenda for today, January 3rd, 2012. Item A, 289 El Cielito Road, was granted final approval of the review after final as submitted. Item B was a vacant lot on Shoreline Drive, and that received comments and was continued indefinitely. And items were reviewed by Jim Zimmerman.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments on either item on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, I'll take a vote for approval of the calendar. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? None. Motion carries. And we'll move to item number D, or letter D, announcements. And I'll move it to staff if there are any announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one announcement I just wanted to bring to the board's attention. We generally would do appointments of chair and vice chair at the beginning of the January, and it is staff's recommendation, given that there was no new appointments to the board as of the last appointment process in December. So it is staff's recommendation that we just keep it status quo with Glenn Deisler as vice chair as chair and Denise Woolery as vice chair. So just wanted to see if everybody agreed with that. And in that case, we could just move to postpone the re-elections until July after we actually do have a change of membership.
I don't know if it's a motion, but
Yeah.
okay. That's fine. Thank you. Sure. Is there any other announcements? I see.
Good afternoon, Chair Deisler and members of the Single Family Design Board. Heather Baker is my name. I'm from the Design Review and Historic Preservation section. I last met with you March 28, 2011 to go over a draft of these guidelines, which I really appreciate your feedback, especially with Denise Woolery meeting with some of the other landscape architects from the other boards in the Historic Landmarks Commission. Basically, I just wanted to let you know that, yes, the council adopted the guidelines in December, so that's great news. And the largest part of the work effort that we had was really the landscaping section. So there was just a couple quick items I wanted to point your attention to that would be worth taking a read when you have time. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me. It's pages 27 through 29, 27 through 31, really. But basically, just as a reminder that if there's a specific tree or planting on a property that the board would like to see preserved, that, again, it needs to be conditionally approved, the project conditionally approved for that specific planting or tree. So that was something the attorney's office has been stressing with us over these last few years to really be specific in whichever tree or landscaping that you might like to be preserved as part of a condition of approval. We also have a new term called substantially similar replacements, and you can take a read through what that is. But basically, it's for a lot of the changes that might be fairly minor. We define what a substantially similar replacement would be so that no permit or review would be needed. And that was something that we reviewed with the landscape architects together. So that was really pretty much it. As part of the update, we also had the Historic Landmarks Commission. They have a now updated set as well as the ABR. So everybody's on par now with the same similar set of general design guidelines and meeting procedures. So that was my announcement. So thanks again for your help in reviewing the document.
All right. Is there any quick questions, or we're just going to take some time to peruse this and...
Just, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Does this yellow one, now, does that replace this one, or it
They're complement to each other.
complement to each other?
Yeah,
Also,
the tan colored document is the residential design guidelines, which are very detailed guidelines for single family development. And then what's in here is just really general things that apply for all three boards and commissions as far as guidelines. But the landscaping design guidelines are located in this yellow document in detail. Those aren't located in the tan document.
Any other questions quickly? All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move to the main part of the agenda, item number 1, which is 1128 Harbor Hills Lane. We've seen this project before, and just to announce to the public, the board as a group has just came back from visiting the site. So we walked the site, and we actually drove down Cliff Drive and looked back at the site as well. So I think we're all up to speed as to what this project is three-dimensionally in real life versus the drawings. So that was a nice exercise, I think. And I'm going to ask the gentleman here to introduce themselves.
Mark Miranda, agent for the owner. Bruce Anderson, owner.
Welcome. And if you could do a quick presentation on your proposal.
Chair Deisler, members of the board, thank you for coming out to the site visit today to see for yourself how things are situated and where the improvements are, because it's really hard to see from just a set of plans. So we're basically just awaiting some of your thoughts and decisions on what you feel after doing the site visit. Do you have anything to add?
Not at this time.
Just a quick question. Are these plans different than
They're
what
the exact same plans, but when they printed, somehow this layer, he had to delayer it, and they came out black. This is just the Saltillo patio and then the deck above. That's part of the driveway. It's the exact same set of plans except for this black ink.
the same ones that were viewed at the prior meeting in
Correct. In
November.
November. Yeah, she just told us to bring 3 new sets.
Okay.
Actually, one comment I wanted, maybe you can elaborate on this, is how the design,
Yeah, if you could talk into the mic.
Mark can elaborate, how the design features of the house flow into the design of the patio and the stucco, matching the stucco,
Oh, the compatibility of
Right,
the
compatibility,
architecture
right.
along with the walls. Well, the walls are stuccoed the same as the house and the same color. And the patio just kind of flows right out of the kitchen living room, well, actually the family room area, out into the side setback. This wall here is the main one along the property line, and then this little portion here into the 10-foot line here. That's requires the mod, and then also up in this area here. And I think the intent of the previous owner was to have some kind of addition off the back that kind of stepped out onto the upper level, but that's...
right, when we purchased the house, he had given us the plans. Where's he getting feedback? We had been given plans for an addition on the back of the house that would come out like so and would have an entryway to go onto this deck, which is the reason for this deck being at that height.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, or we'll just go through questions and comments?
Maybe we'll respond later when we
Okay.
have questions.
Okay, so at this point, I'll go back to the staff if they have any comments. No?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Did you want to read the motion of the last hearing?
Sure. So Denise, if you could read the minutes from the prior meeting.
Okay.
Comments?
I'm getting all kinds of feedback here for some reason. Loud. Oh, okay. I see. We continued this indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. Number one, the board members, staff, and the applicants will attend a scheduled site visit prior to the project returning to the full board for continued concept review. The board requests that the city-approved archives plan set be available during the site visit. That's it.
That was it? Okay. So at this point, I'll go to public comment. I do have one public comment slip only. If anybody else is wanting to comment, I'll need this filled out. And the only name I have is Grace Dotson.
That's not for this project.
Oh, so that's...
Okay.
Are there any people in the audience that are actually speaking on this project? So I'll close public comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I did just want to...
Oh, we had 3 additional letters, right?
Yeah, there were 3 letters of support received from, one was received from Mike Richardson, one was received from Phyllis Hollums, and Io Smergen.
Avo Submergian.
Thank you.
Did you not receive one from the Charles Grant?
That's, I was just going to, we were just passed it out minutes before the meeting. Michelle, have you seen this even? So, yeah, there's a letter from a CL Grant who's listed as a civil engineer. I don't know if it's a neighbor or not. It doesn't really.
No, he doesn't even live in state. He's out of state.
Okay. And I guess he has some maybe structural concerns about the front entry. That's from my perusal.
Oh, we had talked to him before the construction was before the construction was begun on the front steps, and I haven't seen this letter. So
I haven't had a chance to read it thoroughly myself, but I would recommend that we just give this to staff, have them review that, and if there's any items that the building department would need to review, they'll look through the letter, and obviously you'll get a copy of it,
Yeah.
so we can address that.
Okay.
But just public acknowledgement that we did receive a letter, and it does look like it's a civil engineering
yeah, I haven't seen-
inquiry.
I don't know.
So at this point, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for their questions of the 2 gentlemen. Any questions? I mean, what we saw out there, I think everybody understands a lot better than the drawings. So if no questions, let's move to comments. Anybody willing to make a comment? Fred?
Mr. Chair, do we require a motion on this?
Eventually, we will make a motion, not just that we... Yeah, it's comments to the staff hearing officer.
Okay, so it's to the staff hearing officer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just, Mr. Chair and board members, if I just might expand on that. So in the motion that we would be looking for is general comments to the staff hearing officer in regards to the aesthetic nature of the proposed modifications, the modifications including the driveway pillars and all of the work located in that setback.
Okay, I think Fred, okay, Jim?
Well, I have a difficult time approving asphalt. When we first saw this on the drawings, I felt that the walls were too high, and below that could be a problem. The trellis blocking the view from up the slope. But walking the site, and you bought the site with the construction that has already taken place.
Right.
I would attend to prove what's been built. Like I say, it's hard approving as-built drawing construction without permits. But I think in this case, being that you didn't build them, and it doesn't project anyone's views, I could go along with the project.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to share their comments?
Mr. Chair.
Fred?
I tend to agree with Jim's comments.
One of the issues I know that we had a neighbor attend last time who was concerned about the use of the property, which is really not the purview of this board, as I understand it. There was some issues about the height of some trees, but based on, I climbed to the top of the site when we were out there a little while ago, right up to the fence at the top side, and walked along there to see what I could see. We also had, as someone may note, we had the neighbor attend the site hearing or the site visit just a little while ago that lives below, and they quizzed her about what she could see or not see from her property. We did take a drive down Cliff Drive to look at it from the public side to see what we could see there, and I think that, in the long view, perhaps it was unfortunate that it was built without permits, but in the current situation where we are today, I agree with Jim. I don't think that we're looking at something that's totally out of character, particularly when you look at some of the other hillside houses that we observed coming down Cliff Drive.
Thank you. Comments from anybody else? Brian?
I did what they say. I agree with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I feel that,
you have to look at these as a case-by-case basis, and what they've said and what I've seen is pretty innocuous, including the trellis. I don't even think that is being... Now, if the trellis was made of something with bright lights on it and it was pink or something and it had a blowhorn, maybe we would remove it, but it's just this wooden structure that's very compatible to the area, so I can support it.
All right, thanks. Denise, any comments?
I agree with what's been said so far.
Okay. Bernie? Really? I'm the only one that actually, I don't feel comfortable. I just, any work in a setback is something that would never get approved today. Just, it wouldn't happen. And those are the rules that everybody plays by. And just because it was built there and nobody knew that it was there until, more recently, that doesn't make it correct. It's true that it's luckily there's not a neighbor on this side here that's affected so much, but I think it's a slippery slope that if we just allow people to build right to the setback, and then approve it later, then I think more and more people will have a tendency to do that. So I don't feel comfortable with any structures in that setback. But that's just my opinion. It's just one member.
I agree. I'm not going to go back and forth, but how do you, what would you...
Suggest?
Yeah.
Remove any structures from the setbacks. Or come up with another design that would be acceptable. That's just my opinion. That's just, somebody's going to make a motion, and I'm probably going to be on the other side of that motion. But I just want to let the public know that this is something that we don't like to have happen. We don't like to have people come in and approve as-built that are completely against zoning policy. And all of this unpermitted work is going to have to go through the building department. And some modifications are going to have to be done to what's out there right now to meet the building codes right now. You might have to come back for minor design issues in front of this board. But that's just my opinion.
Mr. Chair, given that we just
Received this letter from the civil engineer that I guess was out there. I have a bad feeling you might be in for more than you bargained for trying to get a permit, because it doesn't sound like everything's very stable out there according to this letter.
Well,
I haven't seen it.
yeah.
Wow.
Those are issues for the building department,
Okay.
not for our board to deal with.
Yeah.
So just, you'll get a
You
copy.
may end up having to remove it anyway, is I guess the bottom line.
to get the permitting through from the building department.
I'll look at the letter.
you'll deal with that when it comes.
So is there any additional comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I agree with your comments.
Yeah.
I think that the public should know that we're not going to be here rubber stamping things that get built. Unfortunately, we're in a position as a board, this board has only existed for, 2 years now? 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. But a relatively short time in the life of the city. And we're going to be dealing over a long haul with issues like this as we move forward, where buildings were built 20, 30 years ago when this board didn't exist. Much of the purview of the ABR didn't exist, that it does exist today. So I agree with Brian, we're going to have to probably judge this on a case-by-case basis. In this particular case, given the site, given the existing homes, the foliage, the trees, I agree with you, but I think in this case I could probably live with it.
Okay, is that a motion?
That's a motion. Can we make that a motion?
If you could kind of,
So I would move that we make recommendations to the staff.
yeah, she did.
No, I'm going to say.
Oh, you're going to say
something
something more?
now.
Okay.
Now that I'm,
But I'm assuming she can make comments after I make.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Before you make that motion, too, I just wanted to bring the board's attention to page 15 of the guidelines that were just handed out and just get you guys to look at that, specifically the zoning modifications and your board's role in commenting on zoning modification requests. So specifically that the board's role is limited to whether the proposed modification poses aesthetic issues, such as inconsistency with the neighborhood development patterns or exacerbates conflicts within the single-family residence design guidelines. So, and therefore in the motion should say something along the lines as that quoted text below, where it says the proposed modification is or is not aesthetically appropriate. So just
Okay.
keep that in mind when you craft your motion, please.
All right, so we'll attempt again. Okay, so I'll move a motion that the project is submitted
It would be
does not impede the aesthetics of the neighborhood and isn't inconsistent with the development pattern of adjacent hillside residents within that neighborhood. But it should be noted that this is the motion's only being made on this particular case and is not a precedence for any other applications.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, under comments, Bernie?
okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I do want to put out my comments because it is going to the staff hearing officer, and we're really not making a decision right now. We're just making suggestions and comments based on what we observed. And I agree with some of what's been said. On the one hand, it's already done. It's been there for a long, long time. It's held up. It's difficult to see a lot of it from surrounding neighborhoods. On the other hand, I would like it to be noted that the combination of the driveway pillars, the work done in the setback, the large amount of paving, and my biggest concern is the double-leveled glass decks enclosed that I know would not be permittable today. And so I just want who's ever going to go out there and look at it to consider those things.
Okay. So when we vote on it, you'll have to decide whether you're going to vote for or against that motion.
Mr. Chair, let me just remind the board as well, with such comments, at this time, that's a pivotal moment. If you don't like the glass railings, this would be the time to say that's not appropriate, and they should come up with a different solution. If you're completely fine with it, then but that should be specified here in this motion.
Clarify it as well, is what Fred is making comment on is what's on this set of drawings right now.
Right.
Not something that's been added or changed after. And I will make some comments that parts of the drawing that I see and seeing what I saw out on site, I don't think that they're going to just fly through the building department without some modifications. We mentioned the glass railings and the caps and
Right.
probably heights of rails and things might have been to a previous building code, even though it wasn't permitted. Now the current building code would not necessarily allow this type of construction. So when you do go through that process, you might have to come back for tweaks in the design. But basically what Fred is saying is the deletion of some items that are out there, or as-built items, and the incorporation of the rest of the items that were not permitted are basically acceptable.
Mr. Chair, if I may address Bernie's comment. One of the things that we can do, at least under the Robert's Rules of Order that I know about, is there is a motion on the floor that gives general direction and approval right now. But if there is specifics, say for instance the glass issue on the railings, someone can make an amendment motion to the motion. We can vote on that if it's a specific item, and then we can vote on the final motion. So if someone wants to make a motion specifically on the glass closures or comments, then we can add that in. I mean, that's certainly a possibility.
Sure.
I have a comment on that.
Okay.
I'm thinking, even though it's probably not permittable, that
If you do change the glass to something else, it's going to be more invasive, like more noticeable. So the more subtle these designs are, the more appropriate it is to the cohesion of the neighborhood.
So you're in favor of the glasses?
I am in favor of it, yes.
I'm in favor of it. Anybody else? Okay, so your motion, there's a second. Any additional comments on that motion? I will ask the first to indicate whether the project will be coming back to full board or consent once it goes through staff hearing officer.
It should go back to consent.
If it doesn't change.
If it doesn't change dramatically, yes.
Okay. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, let's take a vote. Oh, didn't I see you?
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put as one last final opportunity, if you guys wanted to make any specific comments. I know you just made general comments that it's not aesthetically, but if you want to make any specific comments regarding the specific modifications, like the driveway pillars.
You're okay with all of the requests?
I'm okay. I could be real picky about the driveway pillars. It's not how I proportionally would have done them. But at this point, how picky do we want to get?
Okay. Not hearing any other comments, I'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. And abstain. Motion carries 4-2. So you'll go see the staff hearing officer and see what the results are after that.
Okay.
And if you get through that, you'll go straight to consent.
Okay.
Thank you.
for your time. Mr. Chair, if I might just also clarify, I know I don't want to beat the issue, but I heard Brian specifically mention it, but did you guys, I think it should be noted for the record, have a preference of whether that pergola should be removed or it was okay to remain?
It was indicated on the drawings to be removed. That's why I asked that.
Yeah. And so,
It's going to be removed. That's the board's preference.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're a little bit early on the next item. Michelle, should we wait just a couple minutes? I know we have, I'm not sure we even have an applicant here right now. Oh, Jim's the applicant, yes.
Yeah, we better wait a few minutes.
Just give it 5 minutes. We'll take a break for 5 minutes. Sorry, I didn't see you there, Jim. We're on item number 2, 1607 Shoreline Drive. This is the fourth concept review. So we've seen this project a couple times before. The last time we saw it was January 31 of last year. So I'm going to have Denise read the minutes from the last meeting.
It was continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. Carryover comments 1A and 2 from January 18th, 2011. Number 1, study simplifying the complexity of the architecture to include the following. Study reducing the scale of the ocean-facing doors and trellises. And 2, applicant is encouraged to consult with the civil engineer or landscape architect to show compliance with Tier 3 Stormwater Management Program requirements for best management practices. And then on the last concept review, the motion, again, was study simplifying the complexity of the architecture to include the following. Study reducing the scale of the ocean-facing doors and trellises. Study eliminating the spiral staircase connection between the roof deck and lower deck. The applicant is encouraged to continue to scale down or reduce the square footage of the roof deck to less than 700 square feet. Applicant is encouraged to consult with the civil engineer I read that already, about the Tier 3 stormwater management program.
All right, thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jim Zimmerman, architect for the owner. What I'd like to do is start from the initial submittal, then quickly go through and show what changes we've made. The first submittal was with no arcade across the front. It has kind of a Mission Revival with some Moorish details across the flat roof. And also we eliminated the enclosed stairway that goes to the upper deck. So we were able to make an arcade across the front, and instead of going with a tile shed coming up, when you recess the second floor, what you usually see is a style shed that comes down. That's the typical thing that you see around town. And what we've done is we've put a green roof in so that the greenery will spill over the balcony and the wall. And aesthetically, you get a much pleaser feeling. Well, this is the existing site plan. And we did initially submit, it was July 6th, 2010. And in the meantime, what we have done, and planning had suggested that we go through and we get environmental approval before we come back with any additional drawings. Here we have the existing elevations with the roof area, which is quite odd for the neighborhood. So here what we have done is the archaeologist came up with a structural setback to this point, and the reflection pool we can keep because it's not in the structural setback. I'd like to also show you that the setback is 20 feet, and we're 32 feet to the arcade, and we're about 26 feet to the garage. So we're well over the setback from the street on the front elevation. The side elevation, we have the side setback. The side setback is 6 feet, and we kept the 14 feet. And the existing garage was 6 feet, which we left the garage where it is, and then we recessed the portion, which I'll show you on the floor plan. So this actually is 12 feet to this point, so it's well beyond 6 feet. So on the first floor plan, we have the stairs going up to the second floor, and then from the balcony, you have a continuation of the stairs going up to a landing. Initially, that landing was enclosed, so you had an enclosed stairway all the way up. And what we did was we brought that wall elevation down to the height of the landing. And the Fruckers, the neighbors who is present, were concerned about that wall being on the 6 foot property line. So we actually, on this showing, we pushed it back another 2 feet. So now the landing is 8 feet from the property line. So as we go up, the floor plan has stayed the same, and we continue up to the roof patio, which is now 500 square feet. We had started on our first submittal at over 900 square feet, and then we've dropped it to 7, and now we have it down to 500 square feet. The lowering of the windows on the rear elevation, we brought the windows down as far as we could to maintain the horizon line from the balcony inside. When you're standing inside in the balcony and you're looking out, down below there, when you're looking out, it starts cutting into your view, and it cuts the horizon line off. So we brought that down as far as we could. And also we added the trellis, which I think design-wise it lowers the looks of the windows themselves. And we also broke up the doors with a horizontal piece coming across at about 9 feet. The circular stairway going up, my client would really like to keep that. He has 4 small children. He would like to have another way to get off the roof deck instead of going down the main stairway, in case of fire or in case of something else that might happen. And the board, I know, has been against stairways up to decks, where this is a stairway down to a balcony. It doesn't go down to the ground. It goes to the balcony and then back inside the house. So I think there's a big difference there. Also, you can see that the roof patio is actually 21.5 feet from the property line. It's well beyond the property line. 15 feet is required. We're 21 feet. And when you look at the height of the tile coming up, it gives the neighbor complete privacy. I'd like to show you some of the houses in the neighborhood on compatibility of this design. This is the Fruckers house next door, which is a 2-story house. This is a house across the street. All these houses are within the 20-foot front yard setback. And I think this design has neighborhood compatibility. I think it will fit in very well. I did mention that we do have environmental approval. What we have is a archaeologist that worked out all the drainage, and the top of bluff, it works out very well. We are submitting a landscape plan for your approval, and that's the only item that's left for environmental approval. What we have is we have a block wall that's about 18 inches high, and they wanted us to remove that because it wasn't permitted. So we will remove that, and then we will re-landscape this area. And also, the owner had put in a guardrail that comes out like this. This is the guardrail. And we're required to move that back 5 feet from the top of the bluff, which we'll do. And I would like to emphasize, looking at the houses in the neighborhood, you know, we certainly have neighborhood compatibility. One other item is that we're 15th on the square footage of on the FAR. We're the 15th in the neighborhood. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any staff comments on this project?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just really want to make a quick clarification regarding the process. This has been submitted for a DART application. It needs a coastal development permit for work on the bluff, and there has not been any environmental approvals yet. It's just been deemed, the application has been deemed complete to pursue the Planning Commission hearing for the coastal development permit. The approval of the environmental review will actually happen at the Planning Commission with the Planning Commission approval. So that's just a clarification.
Okay, so our comments are just going to the coastal.
Yeah, this item is for comments only, so you just want to make comments. If you find it's acceptable as presented, then you'd want to make comments to forward it to the Planning Commission, and if otherwise, return it to the full board if you have any changes that you'd like to see before it proceeds to Planning Commission.
Thank you. So at this point, I'll open up public comment. I have one public comment slip now for Grace Dotson, and if you could sit right there, and you'll have basically 2 minutes to express your comments.
Thank you. I'm on the house on the west side. And first of all, I appreciate Mr. Zimmerman's changes. I'm very happy about most of them, especially the feeling of having a third-story wall right next to us. I also am very pleased that you're doing the landscaping on the Downs Hill Cliff. I was very worried about that, so I'm pleased with that, that they did it appropriately. The only question that we have left is the space between our houses with a little canyon effect. No light comes into our living room. And I'm not quite sure about the privacy of your little balcony versus how that reflects. I couldn't quite tell on the plan how that interfaces with
So
our
Jim, just let me get her
two
comments
rooms.
out. So we'll kind of ask that question when you're done. We'll go over that issue
okay.
when you're done.
Okay.
Any other concerns?
I think that the house is compatible with the neighborhood, and I think he does nice work. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to close public comment since I don't have any more slips. We don't have any letters in the file okay. And I'll bring it back to the board for their questions. I have one or two questions. Jim, have you done any work on the Tier 3 level?
It's complete, yeah. It's completed,
So this is part of it right here?
yes.
And then could you briefly explain how the water and the bluff are being treated, or where drainage is going to go?
Well, what we're doing is we have drains in the lawn, and that will go to a well that would pump up to a well here. And then when that well gets full, it'll overflow. Also, all the gutters and go to downspouts that go with underground pipes that end up over here. Actually, we have one on each side.
So you pump it and then it goes to the street?
That's correct, yeah.
And the only other question I had was the 85% FAR that's on the agenda. That is current and accurate?
That's correct.
Good, okay. Any other questions by any board member?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure,
One is
Bernie.
just out of curiosity, I'm about the process. So the archaeologist comes, and what do they do?
Well, initially, when my client bought the property, the archaeologist came through and did a survey of the property, and it was more of a superficial survey on how much erosion it would take over the years, and that report was good. Now, to go to finding the structural setback, he came back and he surveyed the water line and the slope where the water comes in. And what happens here is this has there's shells that are facing, they're facing like this all the way along. And when the water hits that, it comes back out with no erosion. And some of the lots, I think 2 lots away, had a slide. And their configuration in the front was completely different, where the waves came in and kept eroding on the deep portion, and eventually, it slid. But this has a different configuration here on the bottom of the bluff.
And Jim, if I say something wrong, let me know. But the other thing that usually occurs at that point is they analyze the soil at that point, not just the slope of it, but what type of soil, and that's why Jim was referring to shale. And there's a whole calculation process that usually comes in that determines how far back. Well, first they establish what is the top of the bluff, and then they establish a setback from the bluff.
Because isn't there, I'm just curious, because there's like a 50-year line and a 7, how does that tie in with, just curious,
Well, this would be considered I think a 70-year. And that's why they don't allow any structural items this side of the structural setback. So they have to set a structural setback. If we wanted to, we could build out this way. And we're only building out 5 feet.
Thank you.
Does it answer?
Yeah, that answers that.
Do you have another question?
Let somebody else ask.
Okay. Brian, you have any questions? No. Denise? Fred?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure a couple of things out. Come over, I'll use that drawing over there. Let's see. On the plans, it shows this staircase is cantilevering out away from the front of that balcony?
Yes.
And so would you see that over here? You're going to see part of that over here?
You probably would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you've got it drawn. What does that look like looking that way? I mean, is there a section looking that way through this width? Is that
Yeah, let's see. Is it back this way?
Is that what this is?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Or is that the other? That's the other way. I couldn't figure out what that really looks
Well,
like.
this would be through the stairway.
They both look. It looks that way.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
But there, I guess there would be, the stairway would be partially exposed.
and then the other thing on this elevation, this little cover over the door is sitting. That eave is even with this wall.
Well, this would be the finished floor.
I mean, the staircase on this wall. That's what I could. So that wall.
Yeah.
So that little eave overhang is happening right over here.
That's-
So is that?
Yeah,
even for that.
that's the entrance to the garage.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No.
And Jim, I wanted to bring up the comment that the neighbor spoke about, which was the issue of, I guess, privacy or visibility from your property to the deck. And I don't know.
Well, what happens here is that this tile roof is built up, and you actually have 6 feet to the top of the parapet. When you're standing on the roof patio, there's no way that they could see, into the property line.
Okay, so I don't know if you understood that, but from what Jim just said is, you're standing on the deck, on the roof deck. The tile roof that comes along your side of the property is basically 6 feet above the deck. So if a 6-foot person was standing on that deck and you were level with it, you still couldn't see a person there.
It was a bedroom window that overlooks our bedroom window.
From the second floor, you're saying?
Yes, it's also darkness.
Okay, I was just trying to address the issue of privacy from the deck, but we'll look again. On the second floor, there are 2 bedrooms. Only one of them has a window looking your way, which is this bedroom here.
Yeah, we originally had a balcony there,
Yes,
and Mrs. Dotson was
concerned.
about that, so we eliminated the balcony.
Okay, so it's pushed back 12 and a half feet from the property line. It's a window, not a door or a balcony. But given the configuration of the rooms, there would have to be a window on that side, on their side.
Does it still have a little balcony?
No,
The little outside space?
no.
Yeah, we eliminated that.
Okay, and that brings me to another question. Is you mentioned about a green roof? Is this entire?
That's all a green roof
Okay, so
coming around here. So you will have plants growing up in front of the window also.
okay, so that window will have to be a certain size to meet egress requirements for a bedroom, and we'll take a hard line and look at it. And from that side, it's this window right here.
Yes, yeah.
So it's just an average size window. It's not an oversized window at all. There's the green that you see coming through here. So it's not presented as a balcony or a terrace or anything on that side.
I appreciate you changed to that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Is there any additional questions from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Bernie.
Okay, so just my concern, and by the way, I think this is a great example. I know we're not in comments, but the neighbors have come, the architect and the owners have made modifications, and I think it's really, finally, we get a project that meets our guidelines almost, and it's compatible, and it's because of the give and take of everybody, so that's great. I do want to talk about the roof deck, because I know this house across the street, I've seen people sitting up here, so I guess that's a roof deck.
Yeah,
And I want to understand, 500 square feet, I want to know if people are going to be able to see that from shoreline or from their boats, or is it completely down, or?
It'll be completely obscured from the street. You wouldn't be able to see it. One nice thing about this roof, too, is that we're cutting off about 5 feet of existing roof. So we've received good comments from the people across the street because that will increase their view.
And so this is all in the back. And what is this material?
The stairway, I found a wrought iron stairway that I'll bring in, and it's very handsome. I think it'll look really good there. With the wrought iron railing above, I think it'll look good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move to comments if we could. Again, this is the 4th review. We've made some pretty good headway in revising the massing and I think simplifying some of the architecture and addressing neighbor issues as well. So, is anybody willing to make some comments?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing improvement from the last iteration, and I think that if you put your original picture up here next to this again, so that the public can see just what a change we have here. I mean, that's quite a difference from that to that, and I really, really do appreciate this design very
Oh,
much.
thank you.
And you've basically hit all the points that we had. The only thing that you're retaining that we didn't really like was the little spiral stair. But I think it's compatible with the design.
Oh, thank you.
Brian, how do you feel about this?
I can support this project.
Okay. Bernie?
No, I'm just going to look at my notes from the...
Okay, so we'll move to Fred.
Yeah, no, I can support the project. The only, just little picky things, is this, how that roof meets this element, that bothers me a little bit, but that's just how that comes together.
Yeah, I
and
think-
then that corner kind of bothers me. You have this kind of nice thing going on here, but how that engages there looks a little odd, but I mean, that's in the realm of the overall project, I think it looks fine.
So Fred, I'll jump in on that, and I agree with both of those comments. And the way this is solved on this side here might be a key to solving it on this side here. And the same could do something on those corners to get those a little bit away from those roof tiles and address some of Fred's concerns and my concerns. So Bernie, have you given? Okay.
I think that we've really made a lot of progress, and it wasn't only Denise, it wasn't only that one, but there was another one before that. So this shows that if we really stick to it and work together, then we can get beautiful, compatible projects along the bluff top.
And how does everybody feel about that spiral stair going from a balcony to a roof deck versus coming down to the ground or grade? I know that would have been a sticking point at one time with you.
It still is. I would like to see if there are any alternative ways to do that.
Well, you either have a stair or you don't have a stair is kind of the alternative.
Or a smaller stair into it.
I'll just kind of jump in. There may be ways of making it less visible, more plaster-like instead of more open. So that could work. But Fred?
I guess I'm less concerned, given its location in terms of its view from the neighbors to either side.
Correct.
And particularly because it's facing the ocean. So unless some sailor is really out there trying to figure out what's going on shore, I don't think it's a big deal. I think if this were in another neighborhood on a different condition, yeah, I might have more concern. But given where that little staircase is,
I think we've run into this situation on some other projects, and the stairs were located along the side of the building, right along another neighbor.
Right.
So this being not even going to grade and being in the middle of the lot, obviously the visibility from the neighbors on either side is pretty minimal. So what I'm looking for is some comments only, and we're going to be forwarding these comments to the Planning Commission. And basically, I'm sure the applicant would like to hear positive comments if somebody is willing to formulate a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Excuse me. Did we look at the landscape plan for the front? Or
Well,
I know he mentioned the wall was going to be taken down or changed.
So Denise, I don't know if you've had enough time to look at this, but
Yeah, this was initially looked at for me by you, Denise, originally.
So Jim,
Yeah.
it calls out a new gate and it calls out a wall.
Right.
Is that an existing wall?
That's an existing wall, yeah.
So you're just going to put a
It's-
gate in an existing wall?
Yes, and then there is a zoning violation at the corners that come up, so we'll be taking that down.
But basically, you're keeping the existing
The existing
wall
plaster
and
wall.
modifying it to meet the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a rock pathway up the middle,
Yes.
which isn't there now.
Coming into the arcade there.
That looks good.
Okay.
So Mr. Chair, I did have a question. I thought on the application it said it was going to redo the front wall that's on the street.
Yeah, that's what I
Is that
It'll
correct?
be, the corners will be lowered.
The corners will be lower, but it'll
Yeah.
basically remain a plastered wall painted to match the
That's
main
correct.
body of the house.
Yeah.
And then maybe a question to Denise on the green roof on the top, on the west elevation. The concept sketch delineates planting falling over the parapet, so to speak. And there's about 2 feet between there and the wall of the second floor. I'm just looking at long-term maintenance of planting in that area. Do you see any big issue with that?
The plants that are chosen are aloes and portulacaria, which are both extremely drought-tolerant plants. Portulacaria is like it says here, will drape over the wall, and it has bright-colored flowers on it. Kind of almost like a little miniature ice plant is what it looks like.
But they're appropriate selections. for that.
Appropriate selections for that application.
Okay. So I'm looking for somebody to formulate a motion to Planning Commission.
So Denise, how about this? Did you look?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
it was a little far away, but Yeah, it's basically Ceanothus baccharis, mostly
It's a lot of native.
natives along
Yeah.
the slope, which is good. Yeah. It's all slope stabilizing.
This house right here.
Yes.
This is what we have in, and so now does that get moved, or is that,
Yes.
this
Yeah,
All gets
is
removed.
getting moved, which back?
they'll come back 5 feet, yeah, coming across.
Okay. Is anybody ready to make a motion? Okay, Brian.
I move that the board continues this project to the planning commission. We feel that the project is consistent with appearance and proposed development and sits in the scenic character of the city. The neighborhood is compatible with the neighborhood. The quality of the architecture is good, as well as the colors. The project's landscaping is consistent with the quality and compatibility with the neighborhood as well. And we feel that this does follow the good neighbor guidelines.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody willing to second that motion? Seconded by Denise. And comments under that motion? Brian, do you feel that this project would be able to come back to consent or full board if the design does not change?
I think it can go before consent.
Okay. So if it does come back to consent, you mentioned colors. Was there a color board presented, Jim?
No, I need to put the
So
colors
the colors that you were
together.
referring to were just from the...
From the,
Yes, color board will be required.
Okay. But
Yeah.
the general color palette that you see is
will be
depicted
there.
here? Okay.
Yes, right.
So if it falls within these guidelines, I think it would be fine to go to consent as well.
Yeah, at the colors based on the elevations drawn,
Great.
consistent with the color board.
Okay, so first, second, additional comments to the motion?
Just a comment on that, Mr. Chair, whether it comes back here or consent. It seems like we have 3 things that we're looking at, and one of them is that connection between the middle part where the roof deck is and the 2. That's one thing. And then I'm still a little bit concerned about that exterior staircase and the material and what it's going to look like, and so that's another thing. And then, what was the third? There was one more thing we seemed to agree on.
I think it was here and there.
There, and there's stairs.
Yeah,
The
there.
stairs, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing this again with I can't remember what the third thing is, but if everybody wants it to go to consent, then it's a moot point.
Okay, so we'll just vote on the motion.
Okay.
And, but Jim, this is all wrought iron? This is the
Yes.
railing here would be consistent with what comes up, so it would all kind of look uniform?
Yeah.
I don't know what color it is yet, but it's all wrought
The
iron.
windows, we haven't seen.
Well, that's part of the color board. And
Yeah.
and the details will come out of that, and so will the materials. And the lighting and all of those issues, and the detailed landscaping.
Okay.
So, any other comments on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So the 3 detailed items that you and I pointed out, are they included in the motion? How does that work?
Well, I think that's more of an architectural thing, not a compatibility issue, and I think we're... my feeling is it's... I mean, yeah, you probably could improve upon it, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't concern me, but if you feel it should be included, I think it's a minor point.
Would you mind if it was included?
Well, if it's included, it should be specific
Yeah.
as to exactly what you want.
Well, not what we want, but just having the applicant address the issue of how this roof intersects this roof, how this parapet turns the corner and intersects that roof. Well, if we just make it a comment in the motions to have the applicant show alternate designs or alternate details of how that works, I think whoever's the consent person at the time should be able to take that comment and look at the drawings and say, yes, that was addressed. So those 3 items of how this front parapet terminates against each gable, how the back parapet kind of turns the corner and intersects the hip roof. And the other detail was just more information, I think, about the stair rail and the detailing of that. Okay. So those are fine to be?
Yes.
And you're fine with the second to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional comments? Okay, let's take a vote on that motion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstain. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you after, hopefully, after the planning commission. And, okay. So we're right on schedule with item number 3. So just give us a second to clean off the desk and we'll have you right up here.
So, yeah. That's good. That's good, yeah.
This one we're keeping. Michelle, there was a landscape plan in here that we probably need to. So we're going to move to item number 3, which is 3439 Campanile Drive. We'll have the applicant step up. We'll get drawings in 1 second here. This project was last reviewed November 21st of last year. And we're going to get the minutes from the prior meeting and read those before starting. There you go. So Denise, if you could read those minutes, please.
Where are we? Okay. Here. It was continued indefinitely to full board with the following comments. Provide a brief comparative study on the FARs of homes within the immediate neighborhood. Consider an addition to the west rather than the north, and carefully consider the roof massing. Consideration should be given to the fenestration of the east elevation to be more aesthetically pleasing.
Okay, those are the comments. And I'll make an announcement for myself. I was not here during the previous meeting, but I did review the tape online, so I think I'm up to speed.
Good.
So if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Sure. I'm Dennis Thompson, and this is Irvin Klinkon, the owner.
Welcome. And your presentation and all of the changes that have occurred since the last meeting.
What you've got today is a quick massing study. After the last meeting, we obviously heard this addition was too big. It was too big for the neighborhood. It was too big for the neighbors. It was too big for the board. So this is a quick massing study. It doesn't have windows drawn at all, but it's just to kind of get your feedback on that. I have a comparative FAR study for the nearest 8 houses, and those are these. This is the Klinkon, so it's the immediate adjacency, and there they are in aerial photo. The largest is 0.13, the smallest is 0.06. Most of them are 0.1. And what I've done for this presentation is just take last November's drawings and mark them up in red. So all the changes are here. The proposed square footage has changed. Here's the FAR number. So,
Dennis, can I stop you for? Is this project listed in here?
No, this one was excluded. Here's its number.
So where would it rank?
Oh, it would be number 1.
Okay.
It already is. So
I mean, without any.
without any addition.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a large house. It's I think existing. What do we have? 6,000 some square feet. So that's the comparative FARs. That's not an easy job to do. I hadn't done it before. It takes a lot of digging. Bear in mind a couple of things. These are just guidelines for this size lot. And also bear in mind, I think if you see the footprints here, comparatively, this is one of the smaller footprints of the neighborhood. And what really throws this house into the larger FAR is a 1-foot elevation of its basement. If its basement was 1 foot lower, the basement would not be counted, and the house would be one of the smaller FARs in the neighborhood. So if you bear that in mind, then you will see that the proposal today, after hearing your comments, the neighbor comments, first of all, I looked at a western addition, which would bring, on the main floor, that's what we're talking about here, it would bring an addition out here. It would block the view from this bedroom. It would require a hallway going through that bedroom that makes the roof line difficult. I just don't think it's practical. It also denies at least one of the rooms this fabulous view. The best view is to the west here. So the proposal is to shrink the previous design, which was this footprint, from, I think it was about 1,200 square feet down to 336 square feet gross. In elevation, this wall moves in 19 feet. This former addition is reduced to 25%. This is 25% of that. And this was the elevation that everyone focused on. This is the one the neighbors were worried about. This is the one that, got the most attention. So this is dramatically reduced. The height of the addition is dropped 4 feet. I've penciled in green the height of the existing hedge. That hedge can stay. Danny Cato corrected himself after the meeting. For the next 3 years anyway, there's no enforcement of hedges. Just to maybe clarify this a little more, Mr. Klinkon did his best at simulating this roof corner. And this is it from an elevation across the street in the neighbor's yard, I believe. So this is directly across. This is what you see when you move a little further. I believe this is from his living.
Other way around.
Other way around?
Yeah. This is directly from Dr. Vogel's living room. So one hardly can see it here. And then to the...
We've got one more
right,
view.
Left.
In that case, this is from...
Dr. Vogel's.
These are all from Dr. Vogel's house. So it's this little bit. Now, I think that's interesting what Dr. Vogel sees, but here's what you see from the street. You would never see any bit of that addition from the street. So Dr. Vogel himself said that this wasn't about him and his house. This should be about the Klinkons. And this is, I think, a reasonable addition. They've scaled back their program. They're going to consider an elevator to take advantage of all 3 floors. This gives them what they need. So that's the proposal. I'd love to. The neighbor association is here. They have a presentation to make. They've seen this. They've looked at it. If this is an approvable massing, I'll come back, in a reasonable amount of time with windows and doors and elevations and notes.
Okay. Is there anything else for your presentation?
No.
All right, thank you. Michelle, any staff comments on this? I know I have some public comment to deal with here. Okay. So we'll open up public comment. I have one slip from Bob Swanson.
That's me.
If you could sit there, sir. And you're from the Homeowners Association.
Yes. I'm Bob Swanson, and I'm the Campanile Homeowners Association Architectural Review Committee Chair. And I'm here to support Mr. Klinkon. As far as our CC&Rs and our neighbors, we feel that the reduction that he has made in the mass of this addition is a very generous compromise. And we have vetted this with the neighbors. They're happy with it. So we would like to sign on and say we support his ability to make this small addition. The one thing that we would like to see, just for the benefit of the neighbors, is a story pole showing kind of exactly where this addition is going to be,
Okay.
if that's reasonable.
Thank you for your comments.
All right.
And not having any other public slips, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for their questions. I have one question. Dennis, the same, you're still proposing to take the redwood off, I guess, or the wood siding off
Yes.
and put stucco in its
Stucco
place?
the whole building.
And again, trying to just get through the massing parts of this project and then come back with tweaks to the window designs and things?
Show the windows, although I will say right now to the board that we're not going to change existing windows.
So
I think that came up last time.
Yeah,
and
I heard Fred talk, and I think you were pointing to this area.
That's not part of the plan. It's not part of our proposal. It's
Okay, so we'll just cross that bridge when Fred
Right.
does his comments again. But yeah, it would be nice to see the rest of the windows before we obviously
Sure.
could make a motion. So those are my questions, but does anybody else have any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, Jim.
Dennis, could you show us again where the addition's going? I didn't get
on
that.
which plan? Floor plan, site plan?
Roof plan, floor plan,
Yeah.
I think.
Here it is in the floor plan. It's the red
So this
zone
is-
in lieu of this. So we've eliminated the laundry, an extra bedroom, and an extra bath, and we're going to make double use of that bath.
Oh, okay.
That deck is still in the proposal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then on the site plan?
And then on the side plan, this is the roof line of it here, proposed roof and proposed
okay.
wall below.
So none of this is being proposed?
It's an extension of this roof then. This roof just grows out a little bit, and then it has a lower ridge line than the big ridge.
Okay. Any additional questions? Fred?
Dennis, on the addition, what probable use is that addition going to be?
This will be the study and the closet. So the study, what's going to be left out is the library, the laundry room, the new bathroom, and the new bedroom. So in fact, this will stay bedroom. We'll get an elevator in here at some point to access a laundry room in the basement, and there is a virtual library on the third floor. So these three functions will either be on this plan. What's going to be here is the study, which will be heavily occupied by Mrs. Klinkon, and she'll have advantage of that view.
And you're not anticipating any balconies or anything like that?
Well, we actually are talking about a good-sized balcony here, perhaps with a hot tub. I haven't shown that because I didn't think that was the primary issue. The primary issue was the...
And so if you did do that, what level would that come off? This
that
level
would be
or the
at this
below?
level,
This
which
level?
is actually below street level.
Okay.
It would be invisible to everyone except outer space.
Okay. And just to follow up on Fred's comment, your balcony, is it a true balcony or is it going to be...
It would be more like a deck, an extensive deck with a hot tub in it.
Okay.
At mid-level, which is below street level. And I haven't drawn it because, again, I thought the main issue was, let's see if this is an approvable design before we
Well, I don't think you'll
start
have an
embellishing
argument
it.
on the board that this is not an improvement to what was there before. We just want to not mislead you what that was, if there's things on the plan that we don't see yet, we can't comment on them.
Sure, I understand.
But the deck doesn't necessarily go, into the setback or within 20
No,
feet of the setback.
I think it would be smaller than this previously proposed footprint.
Okay.
And there is a massive hedge right here buffering them from the next neighbor.
And then following up again on Fred's comment, your question, your comment, the elevator is not going to project through the roof.
Oh, no.
Okay.
This would be
Additional questions?
So just, Mr. Chairman, may I just
Sure.
wanted to make sure everybody realized that this deck is still part of the project as well? And this here as well, or this extension?
I think so. I
So
mean,
the
we may
deck's here.
rethink that when we look at this deck.
Yeah, that you may not want it
Whether
there.
we need that. I don't know that we need that extra 2 feet. Now, this was previously going to be a family room. Now it's a bedroom. I don't think it needs the bigger.
So we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll move to comments, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll
Yes,
start
Fred.
my end. No, I think this is a huge improvement and in many ways a big sacrifice on part of the applicant, but I really appreciate your ability to listen to the neighborhood and understand the dilemma you're in terms of trying to make this house last forever for you. I guess and then just a comment about the windows. I think the reason we got into the discussion of changing the windows is when we thought the hedge would have to come down. I think that's what was precipitating that comment. But now that we understand the hedge is remaining, I think, in my mind, the windows are less of an issue. But it will be interesting to see window location for the addition when it comes back.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll follow. I mean, I from what I viewed on the tape, I got a pretty good handle of what the board's reaction was, and it seems this is like Fred said, a huge change, and I think it's very successful, and I could support what I see, not necessarily what I don't. But
I think it's a very very good improvement, but you're going to save a lot of money too. But I would go ahead and show the front patio. You know, I'd go ahead if you're gonna
This one or
that
this
that
one? Yeah. No, I would
Just to
definitely
make sure that
bring the
it
whole
works
thing,
and-
thing back with 3 elevations of it and staircase location.
Yeah, I can approve it. Project.
Bernie, you're okay?
Yep, same here, I'm
Okay.
good.
Yeah, I'm appreciating, and I'm glad you explained how you had difficulty pulling it that direction. So I can support this. It's great.
Okay. So if we're ready, could somebody just formulate a motion giving, I guess, positive comments to the revised design and a little bit of direction on what we still need to see before we could give it approval?
I can make a motion.
Oh, good.
I find that the project has neighborhood compatibility, and that it's the quality of architecture. I think maybe with smooth plaster, smooth trowel plaster instead of the stucco. And I would recommend approval coming back to the board.
Okay. So we're not making a motion for approval
Okay.
yet. Just comments for the applicant to come back.
All right.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I might just chime in, just to not necessarily make the NPO findings at this point, but just give specific bullet point direction.
Yeah. So Jim, what I'd ask you to do is just comment about the massing and the scale, because that was the predominant issue that the board had issues with last time. So you feel that is either appropriate or...
Well, I feel the architect did a good job of locating the addition so that it's not viewed from the street. And that was one of the big complaints before. So
Okay. So massing-wise, you're okay?
yes,
And FAR-wise, you're
I'm okay with that
Okay.
there.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
And follow up with comments?
But I do have a question, the maker of the motion. When you talked about the stucco, are you suggesting to the applicant a specific stucco finish, like steel trowel or?
There'll be a steel trowel smooth finish with the trowel texture, just not a spray-on plaster,
Not a sand finish or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I can agree with making the second.
Okay. So the first and the second, and then following up with additional comments, I'd like to include in the motion, again, having the applicant come back showing all of the revisions to the decks, all of the additions and changes to the windows, and just a more complete set of plans, obviously. And a color board probably would be good because it's a whole new change in the look of the building. I mean, anticipation, you're going to keep the roof? Okay. And most of the windows?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there's a first, a second. Any additional comments on the motion?
Yeah, just a quick question to the applicant. I think we talked about this last time. If you're not going to change the existing windows, are you going to try to make the new windows match the old windows? How are you going to handle that?
Yeah, they're all aluminum, dual glazed windows. So we'll be using the same, it's a bronze aluminum.
And the motion, just clarifying, is to have the applicant, is an indefinite continuance?
Yes.
To come back to full board? Okay. Everybody understand the motion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstained. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to keep these? You know, the neighbor asked about a story pole. This is essentially a story pole. Maybe they can work that out together. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to move to item number 4. Okay. We'll take a brief recess.
Come on, Dennis, stretch it.
So we're going to reconvene the Tuesday, January 3rd, 2012 Single Family Design Board. And before we start item 4, Michelle wanted to, you want to talk about this project? Okay, so let's start this project. Item number 4, 1121 Walnut Avenue. This is the second concept review. And Michelle, if you have some comments on the project?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of inform the board what's happened between the last review and this review now. Discussing this project with other staff members, planning staff members, and the applicant. They were going to withdraw this application and submit for an ABR application for multifamily, considering one or more units on the lot. We ended up actually, planning staff put a curb to that plan because given the new general plan that's been adopted and the location of this parcel, there may be some prohibitive measures which may not allow more than one unit on that parcel to be in compliance with the newly adopted general plan. So thus, that's why he's continuing this as it's an enforcement case. They have to continue to pursue an application. And I haven't seen these plans yet since he just resubmitted for a continued concept review, but we'll pass it over to Brian so he can tell you what's changed since the last review.
Okay, thank you. And if you could just introduce yourself right now.
Brian Murphy, architect.
And before you do your presentation, we wanted to read the comments from the prior meeting. And Denise, if you could read those.
Yes, we were continued to the full board with the following comments. The board found the overall project size, bulk, and scale to be acceptable. The board found the proposed Spanish architectural style acceptable, however, emphasizes that the level of detailing should be reflective of the Spanish-style architecture. For example, study the overall windows and fenestrations, the eyebrow details, the wainscot detailing, the balconies for details of support post railing and doors, and study the color and materials. The board would prefer to see a new conforming two-car garage that is compatible with the architecture of the proposed new residence. If the existing garage is to remain, then efforts should be made to improve the aesthetics and functionality of the existing non-conforming garage. Study the wall configuration, entry element, and fencing along Walnut Avenue. Study the front entry door and sliding glass door on the front elevation. Show the right-of-way and edge of pavement on the plans. Provide a landscape plan for the front of the building to the edge of the paving.
Thank you. And your comments, your presentation, I'm sorry.
Yes, we were, in fact, thinking of taking this to the next level and doing some multifamily work on the property. However, it turns out that we seem to fall in the new 250-foot setback from the APCD from the edge of freeway paving. So if it touches your lot, you are affected, not even how deeply it goes on the lot, is my understanding. So we are back at the single-family board, and for the foreseeable future, we will remain here, I guess, is what we've discovered. But if I could, I'd like to kind of walk you down the street. This is a street that runs along just to the west of Southern Pacific Railroad's right-of-way. The train tracks are there to the west. US 101 is beyond that. There is no paving on that side of the street. The city has a 6-foot chain link fence that runs the entire block that they have planted with some vine pockets, some trumpet vine growing up there. Occasionally there are...
Let's put it right there for the camera. Okay.
Occasionally there are some trees also as well, but largely along the street you see the vines. Starting at the south end of the street, so we are down here. Moving up the street, we see a number of two-story stucco, Spanish tile buildings. We were talking a little about compatibility of that. In fact, all the buildings along that street, with the exception of one, really are the stucco Spanish tile type buildings. Let's see, sorry. This was the first building on the corner. This is taking a look at each building as we go. First building on the corner, second building from the corner, third building from the corner. This is the building next to us, the fourth building from the corner. This is our adjacent neighbor. This is another shot of that looking further back into the site, just to the south of us. This is our property. And then, sorry about my printer running out of ink. Then the site just to the north of us has what I've been told by the neighbors is the largest avocado tree in Santa Barbara. Is it 4 foot diameter?
Yes, this one is
Oh,
huge,
okay. It's a huge tree. So pretty much fencing along that side, the avocado tree behind it there, and then the house located really up to Anapamu Street, quite a ways away from Walnut and from our property. This is the corner looking directly at the end of Anapamu. There's a pedestrian overpass to the freeway that spirals around there, looking at the building across Anapamu. There. Also, I wanted to show you a little how here's a little bit of a close-up of our fence across the street with the city's trumpet vines, the chain link fence, an oak tree that is directly across from us. Maybe I should skip the landscape plan so we can some of those work. Oak tree across from us, the 6-foot chain link fence with trumpet vines trailed on it, and some of our existing vegetation, bougainvillea up against the fence there, a fairly large grouping of bird of paradise that's existing on our site, a fairly large Yucca gloriosa, I believe, about 12-inch diameter, existing here just beyond our property line in the street right of way. Again, looking at the 48-inch or 4-foot diameter avocado tree beyond. We restudied our building to a certain extent and tried to think about working to accommodate some of the board's comments, setting the windows in, thickening walls at windows, removing the little eyebrows over the windows, being a little bit more traditional in terms of the way the wall across the front continues, is a part of that entry porch element, so the wall continues clear over to the property line rather than transitioning to a wood fence that we had there before. Screening off what's happening at our little patio here. Our front door is well hidden by the front entry porch. Reworking a little bit the way the pot shelf happens at the kitchen window here. Screening that again with planting down the driveway. Taking the board's direction on continuing the back porch all the way across, putting a roof on that back porch, doing a little pitch break so that the roof breaks down to a light, slighter pitch across there. and roofing that upper deck and continuing the porch all the way through the back. Restudying the scale of the post supports on that back deck area, and taking a conceptual look at the way the landscaping might work. None of the adjacent properties have any improvements in this street area, so my thought was to, like the neighbor next door, simply continue the ground cover out there, provide sort of a tiered landscape approach probably to some low plantings and then some medium plantings against the site wall, and maybe an accent tree. We talked about some screening trees to screen off windows that were close to that property line, also the balcony, screen that off from the neighbors, although they're, like I was saying, this is where the avocado tree is, and that house is set considerably away from us. Screening off also the parking, trying to screen the existing garage back there as much as we can. Let's see, I forgot. Trying to simplify the elevations a bit, and went to maybe a crenellated, scalloped, plastered detail at the cantilever there. Hip the roofs to make the building a little softer. I think that's.
That concludes your presentation?
I think so. I
Okay.
probably forgot something.
All right. Any public comments? You already had some on this project. Let's, I guess, move to public comment. Oh, you do have staff comments? Okay.
I just wanted to emphasize again regarding the parking. So the board had spoke previously regarding whether it was appropriate to build a new house and keep the existing non-conforming garage. And I just wanted to clarify, for a planning perspective, when you are proposing a new complete house, you do have to bring parking into conformance. That would mean providing a two-car garage or two covered spaces, or in this case, as they're proposing, one covered and one uncovered, for the exception of having a residence less than 85% of the FAR. However, it is still the board's purview to suggest whether or not it's appropriate to maintain that existing non-conforming garage, and whether you'd like to see a garage, whether it's attached or detached. So I'd like the board to specify that in whatever motions they make or make comments on that. They are at this point, as I believe you are, requesting to keep that existing non-conforming garage in its location.
We
with
are.
maybe just discussing, as we discussed last time, changing out the door to meet transportation code requirements. But I would like the board to specify on the parking configuration
All right,
in relation to the proposed new house.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'll open up public comment. I don't have any slips. There's nobody in the audience that's jumping up, so there's no letters in the file. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for their questions. Jim, quick question.
Question. You know where you scallop the front, which looks really good, but your overhang runs through. There's no break in the overhang. Wouldn't you scallop on the other side too? This is one wall coming across?
No, it steps back. The building above continues on that
okay.
line. The ground floor steps back.
Well, that step isn't shown there then. It steps back here?
No.
So the upper floor is continuous. It's just the lower floor that jogs back underneath there.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a big improvement.
Additional questions, please. Okay,
I
Fred.
have questions. On the windows, are those casements, sliding? What are you thinking?
We were thinking sliding windows, thinking that perhaps we might go to the what they're calling them now. Excuse me. Yes. just one second. I have a little brochure. We're thinking perhaps to use the Milgard bronze sliding window of their Montecito series.
Is that an aluminum clad?
It's a vinyl window.
The vinyl window.
In bronze color.
Okay.
And do they have true divided lights, or is that a plant-on?
They have grids.
Okay. And then a question. I was out again to the site yesterday. Is the current house currently occupied?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming some of the material that's in that yard belongs to the occupant?
I believe to the tenant.
To the tenant. And then there appears to be construction material out there that belongs to the tenant, or that part of the proposed project that's ongoing?
I'm not exactly sure, but they the reason this project started when it did is that the owner started working on the footings for this building. This was a building that was moved to the site in the 30s, and it literally had no foundation, no perimeter footings, just on piers that were placed when they dropped it there. And so he started working on that new perimeter a little ahead of the game.
Okay. And then, so going to that comment on page A2, you have existing piers that appear to be remaining.
Yes.
All of that's going to stay in place, and then you're going to put in new concrete footings.
Yes. Essentially, we're building a new structure around the building and bridging over it.
Okay. And then on the northwest elevation, you have a screen showing on the porch. What's your... I know this is concept, so what's your intention there? What is that going to be made of?
My thought was to build a little Satio tile screen.
So it's a Satio tile screen?
Yes.
Versus
it was just a
more traditional screen. Okay. And then...
looking from that entry porch to the patio.
Okay.
Beyond.
And then I noticed out in that neighborhood, if you look at the landscape plan, that's probably the easiest place to see it. A lot of folks, because Walnut Avenue isn't probably completed like a lot of other city streets are, there's a lot of folks that park in that 10-foot area there. And so maybe this is a question to staff. Are they allowed to park in that 10-foot area, or does that in fact have to be landscaped right up to the paving? No, if you look at L1, sheet L1, the property line goes just to the other side of that yucca, and then this drawing's proposing ground cover to go out all the way to the edge of the paving. So there's a piece of the street, I assume that's city property,
That is city property.
that's being proposed to have ground cover in it. So my question is, are they required to do that, or are they required to allow cars to park in there?
So if I understand the first part of your question, are they allowed to have landscaping in there? And I would say as long as it's basically a right-of-way. So as long as it complies with the landscaping heights, doesn't exceed the 8 inches on the right-of-way. Like this would be like considered a park strip. Was the second part of your question whether they're allowed to park, or?
Yeah, are they allowed to, are the public allowed to park in that area? Because I noticed they park, if you look at that street, there's cars in the other locations.
Currently, I mean, again, it's an unimproved street, so there's no curbs. If it's been, is that asking the question? If that's a continuous state and they're not proposing to change that, then I wouldn't see any reason they couldn't park there. Okay. I mean, at some point in the future, if Public Works wanted to come in and put a street in and do the curbs and sidewalks, then that would be a Public Works, a project.
And so that would occur in that 10-foot area?
Yeah, that would be in the easement area.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, you had a question?
I know you were talking about something in the future. You wanted to use this garage for now, but he wants to plan on something in the future. Has that all been changed now because of that 250? So, okay.
Well, my understanding is that the 250-foot APCD air pollution control district setback is something that we have for a certain amount of time. It apparently will go away in a few years. So in the long run, that would be his potential use for this property, his long-term intended use. In the near term, this is all we can do at this point.
I don't know if this is a question or comment, but it would seem to me we should recommend a two-car garage, yet you're saying sometime in the future he may.
The question I have is, what's your proposal for the garage? I hadn't seen an elevation drawing of it.
I didn't actually get to that because I started moving down the multifamily direction and then suddenly I yanked back. So my thought was that perhaps we could provide a plastered facade at the door face. It's a flat roof structure. I think in our other photos we showed a picture of it a little better. And we have to put a new door in anyway, so maybe we replace that front wall and screen the rest of it with some plantings.
Okay, so that's still sort of coming, the design for that.
There it is.
Okay. So this is the view from this side.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a flat roof with a parapet around three sides, drains to the back, drains to this side, and sheds off.
So there's a possibility, like you said, of just
plastering that facade.
The front parapet. Okay. Any additional questions? Bernie?
I was just thinking, why not think about a two-car garage, and then if 3 or 4 years down the road things change, then you could maybe put some units above the garage.
Food for thought.
Okay, are we in comments?
We're moving that way.
Okay.
It started out as a question. So let's move to comments. How does the board feel about the garage? I mean, that was one of the items that Michelle asked us to make sure that we gave direction to the applicant for. Given this basically new house, and new style, how does the board feel about this existing non-conforming garage?
Well, Mr. Chair, I said this before. I think I really like the house as it is, as designed, and the garage will certainly look like it doesn't match and like it's out of place. And although I do understand the intent of the owner, and he can legally do this, so it's not like, I mean, we could force his hand and say, oh, it's aesthetically unpleasing, and you know, make him build one that he has to tear down later, but I still feel like that's sort of an exercise in futility, and that given the area and the restrictions that they have to look at now, I think they're doing the best they can with the property.
So you're okay with leaving it in that position
I am
as a one-car garage and keeping and
with some paint and some stucco and some cutening up, I wouldn't be opposed.
Okay, Brian, how are you feeling about the garage and the parking situation in
I feel
general?
that this park is in the direction of being multifamily. I think that's where the owner really wants to go with this, and so, but he can't do it now. It's single family. Sorry. Anyway, I'm happy with how it is.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I have one question. Is that a two-piece mission tile, or
Yes.
is it S-tile? Or?
Two-piece mission tile.
Okay.
So you're okay with the parking,
I'm okay with
one
that,
car?
yeah.
Bernie, how you feel?
No, I'm not okay with the parking.
And you're recommending a two-car
Well,
garage?
I just think that these older neighborhoods that don't have, they're very dense in terms of there's a lot of cars, and especially if it's going to have a lot of people living in it, which it's been disclosed to us that it is. So there are probably going to be 6 people living there, and let's say not everybody has a car, but let's say 4 of them have cars. So it just seems to me if somebody's going to go to the trouble of trying to comply with neighborhood compatibility, which is toward the upper level, toward improving the neighborhood and making things nicer, then it should have covered parking for at least 2 cars, which is really what they're proposing is one uncovered space. So what's with that? They're going to park on the lawn somewhere?
No, there's actually a space over here, and that's
Yeah.
allowable within our
I
guidelines.
don't think that it really,
Okay.
serves the neighborhood.
So you're against this current solution right now. Fred, how do you feel?
We're on the garage comment?
Garage and parking, yes.
Yeah, no, I would have to support a two-car attached garage.
Attached?
Yes.
Okay. I'm kind of okay with the situation it is right now. There's quite a bit of room, and it's all towards the back of the lot. So I don't think from the street side it's going to really affect the look of the neighborhood much at all. And basically our guidelines do allow for one car covered and one car uncovered screen. That wasn't necessarily my choice, but that's what our guidelines do say. As far as enhancing the garage, I would be in favor of that. If the applicant would love to present a two-car solution, I'm sure that would be equally supported, or more equally supported. So, but I'm okay. So I think in general, you got more yeses than nos. So we'll maybe do a formal straw poll on that, but.
From what Bernie said, in that neighborhood where everything seems to be stacked outside and no room, inside of a garage, because most of the garages are single. I think I would tend to go with a double garage. Can you add another garage to that one? Can you add and keep that, or can you add a garage to it?
I don't think I can.
It's in the setback, first of all, right?
Well, Michelle's going to maybe answer that in a second here.
Yeah, that's a good question. If they did make any alterations to that existing non-conforming garage to, for instance, make it a two-car garage, that would necessitate a modification because it would be changing the existing non-conforming structure and increasing that. So that could be.
Yes.
Now, but they can put on a new door, and you said last time they could rebuild that garage. So maybe we could talk about if, as a step up, not a two-car garage, which is the standard, but it's below standard if we allow it to have a single-family house and the uncovered one space. That was, I remember when we talked about that, and that was really in extreme situations when there was no other alternative. It was mainly for houses on very small lots where there was no other room, and it was not designed to be, in this case, I don't see how we're serving the neighborhood by letting, this slide past. And at the minimum, I think we should talk about rebuilding the existing garage so at least you can use it, and then somewhere making a designated space so we get, not a dirt space, but a real space that fits a car that's the right size so that at least we have two cars off the street.
Thank you. Denise?
I think that one of the things we're not really looking at hard here is the fact that, you can say that, but is anyone ever really going to pull a car in there? Probably not. They're not going to. They're going to use it for storage, probably. That's what people do with one-car garages. Nobody's going to pull in there. That's, the reality of it. So that's what I guess my point being is that there's still going to be cars everywhere. Whether they keep this or not.
With this new approval of a brand new house to say, wait a second, we also want this improved to the standard.
Okay, so I think what it'll come down to is we probably need just a straw poll, and that'll set the sort of the bar. So
some of us are changing our minds.
Well, that's fine. So I'd like to take a straw poll.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to reiterate and just for the record explain the options here. So, for instance, that is an existing non-conforming one-car garage. They can make alterations to it. They could completely demolish that and rebuild it like for like. They can make aesthetic improvements to it that don't change the height and they don't increase window sizes or door openings. So they can change the material of it and they can replace the door like for like size. They cannot increase the height or increase doors or add windows of that sort. So those are kind of two options. They could completely demolish it, rebuild it. They can make aesthetic alterations to it to kind of make it more compatible with the proposed new home. Or if the majority of the board wants, they could have two options. They could proceed with the modification to do a two-car garage, keeping that portion of the non-conforming and adding on to it, or they could suppose if they didn't want to go through the modification but the majority of the board wanted a two-car covered option, provide an option that conforms to the setbacks. So those are just some options for clarification.
Yeah, there's probably 4 or so options there. I think the bottom line is whether or not the board is willing to accept a one covered garage solution. That's step one. And if the majority of the board is accepting of that, then we can just look at this plan and come up with a solution of how to make it aesthetically compatible. Again, as Michelle said, is if the majority of the board is in favor of a two-car garage that is within the setback, then we'll go down that path. And then probably the third thing is whether the board is looking for a two-car solution and could support a modification to keep this existing one car and add a bay. That I think is the three major.
Wait, add a what?
Well, it's a one-car garage now,
Yeah.
but if the applicant would be willing to add another bay, it'd be a two-car garage, but still in violation of the setback. So he'd have to go for a modification.
I have a question for staff, though. It doesn't look like this meets the current requirements for height, though, even for a one-car garage. So would they even be able to do that? I doubt it.
Well, again, they can completely demolish it and rebuild it as a one-car garage, not in.
Okay, but it would change.
conformity.
It would change because it doesn't look like it conforms to what we would now build as a one-car garage. I mean, there's a certain height.
Well, transportation did already.
Is it standard height?
All you need is 7
doesn't
feet
look
of
like it.
clearance or so.
Wow.
Transportation did review it, and they were okay with
Okay,
everything.
all right.
They just wanted
to double check
better
on that.
door.
So it's
Okay.
possible.
So it's possible.
And it's even possible if we're willing to accept the modification to the design, they could accept the modification to the vertical height of it.
So we could slope its
Not saying that necessarily, but but there may be a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense, I don't know, in my mind, if you're going to go through all that, just demo the thing and build a two-car garage? It'd be cheaper, probably.
What are you thinking, Jim? Looking at something else?
Well, I think there's room for a two-car garage.
Sure there is.
And I think the house is designed so that it could very easily be 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, with 4 cars parked out in front.
Okay.
But there is room to put a double garage in, so.
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
No question about that. I think I see how this is going to wind up. So I'd like to make a straw poll again. How many members of the board are okay with keeping the existing garage, enhancing the architecture, and having an uncovered second parking location? Which is what these plans show right now. You can't? Okay, I would have supported it. The second thing is how many members of the board could accept a two-car garage solution, keeping the existing garage with maybe structural enhancements and aesthetic enhancements, and providing positive comments about the encroachment of the garage for a modification. meaning a two-car garage, keeping this footprint, adding to it.
Gave me another crazy out of the box
Well, let me
idea,
finish.
but let me just say this, because what if, I mean, I could maybe support that, but here's an idea. Have him build a two-car garage and let him remodel this existing garage, and that way we provide 3 parking places. Covered. Just an idea.
He could combine these, yes. So I think that was 1, 2, 3, and you were a no on that, right? So there was 3, and 3. How many members of the board could support a two-car garage? No, everybody should raise their hand. That's within the setback.
It's within the setback?
With
outside of the setback.
You know, meets the requirement setbacks. So, I'm not sure you got a vote of any way of keeping that.
I don't think I did.
With the current board. So,
Use your imagination on that new garage for future plans.
so we're in comments only still, right? This project we can't do anything on. So that'll just be an issue that you're going to have to consider. So let's talk about the architecture of the house. We haven't even talked about it. Other than some windows and some things. In general, I think it's a good improvement from what you showed last time. The details are much better, and I find it acceptable. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I have some comments.
Sure.
I think, yes, the architecture has generally improved since the last visit. I am concerned about using sliding glass windows. I guess I'm not convinced that those ought to work. I think they ought to be casements. I'm particularly not totally bought in yet to the windows that show in the bathrooms, those little tall sliding things. I think there's other solutions there that can be accommodated and still get to the height issue around the tub and all the circumstances that one has to deal with when you're doing the bathrooms like that. I'm concerned a little bit about the darkness of the staircase. And if you look at the northwest elevation, we have one small window at the bottom floor. And it's going to make that staircase really dark. And I think that there might be some room for study of introducing a different window location or another window or something to make that staircase a little more naturally daylighted. I guess I'm also concerned that in reality, given the fact that this, as someone already pointed out, may be a 4 or 5 bedroom house by the time it actually gets finished, and there'll be a lot of folks living in it. And given the nature of the neighborhood in terms of cars parked, that I would be much more in supportive of just having the applicant pave that first 10 feet or 11 feet off of Walnut Avenue rather than putting in ground cover, because my suspicion is over a period of time the ground cover won't be maintained, people will park on top of it anyway, and then you're going to end up with kind of another ugly solution. So why don't we just go ahead and get it paved now up to the property line? And then if the city wants to come on sometime later and put in curbs and gutters, et cetera, that's the city's issue. Those are my main comments.
Okay, Denise?
Mr. I just wanted to comment on what Fred just said. One of the issues about that is in public works setbacks like that, you do that, you're going to get slapped.
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
You can't do that. Right? It's like they will come and they will make you do it like, with the 6-inch road base. I mean, so I just ran into that on a project.
Michelle, you have a comment on that?
I was just going to say, I mean, they would have to go through
You'd have to go
Public
through
Works
Public
to
Works.
I
get
think we
that
should
paving
advise.
appropriate.
Well, that's my opinion.
I understand. Yeah, but the minute you touch it, if they see it, they'll red tag you.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, just on that point, it's just there an alternative besides, I thought the same thing. I wrote down ground plantings when you said that, and I thought, oh, great, they're going to park all over them, and they're going to be dead in 3 weeks.
Gravel, but they'll still bust you.
You can't put gravel.
You can't put gravel.
No, it gets carried onto the roadway,
That's
and
right.
you actually have a setback requirement now from roadway surface to put gravel paving.
DG. Whatever you do, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one
Grass
yet.
paved. That's grass paved stuff. Then grow ground cover in some of that grass block. There you go.
Is there any other comments regarding the architecture? I mean, we basically gave its massing and style issues last time, so now we're looking at some refinement. Fred mentioned some window issues, which I think the architect can look at and decide what they want to do about those.
Yeah, I think it's a huge improvement, and you have some way of changing these windows so they're more traditional horizontal. Also, I think it's a typo. It says up on the second floor. I think that's supposed to be, and the roof rafters being a little thicker. I don't know if that's just an AutoCAD drafting, but maybe beefing up the roof rafters a little bit.
This is in a high fire area, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying it really wants to be a 4x instead of a 2x?
Yeah, that's purely aesthetic. So, I mean, that's my suggestion.
For this style house,
Yeah.
probably.
Brian, question to you on the bathroom windows. I would think a more traditional way to do that is just a little square casement that could sit up above the tile around the bathtub.
And it would be half of the tile and half.
Well, I just did a house where I just put a little, 1 foot square casement, and I've just put it right up at the top of the tile in the bathroom, and it does the same job these windows do. It looks a lot better, I think.
Okay. I'll do that.
Okay.
Me too.
Was there any comments landscaping wise that you wanted to think about? I mean,
Well, he hasn't really called anything
just some
out. It's
screening.
just, screening. I think the screening is in the right places. I like the idea of a tree out in front, like the proposed accent tree. Are there any power lines on that side?
Power lines are here, I believe.
So they do run across the front of the property? Then you'll want to make sure that tree is like a canopy tree, like a cassia or something like that will spread horizontally and make some nice shade for the cars that are going to park out there. And not go up into the wires. That's about my only recommendation. Everything else is okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question on construction, during construction period. Does the city have a standard requirement? We don't have anything in our guidelines or that requirement. But during construction, is a closed fence required on a construction site from this roof? It's typically a chain link with that green canvas stuff during construction.
I'm not familiar with any requirement.
Yeah, typically that would be a building code. Generally, that's their purview when they have a issued building permit for construction. They've set those rules as to what sort of construction fencing they prefer and require.
Yeah,
Generally,
I would just
it's-
noticing that recently in my neighborhood there was a major remodel addition to a house, and there was a covered chain link construction fence.
Yeah, that's typically the norm.
I think that's what a lot of contractors like to do, but I'm not sure it's a requirement at all. I'm not sure there's a requirement even to have a fence.
There isn't, because
I think it's smart, but I don't think it's a requirement. Yes, Brent.
Yeah, so is this going to be a white stucco house then?
That's essentially what we were thinking, was with an accent color for the water table.
I guess I really appreciate that you came back, and I think you're really moving in a good direction. I think that it will look nice in the neighborhood, and we will have to make sure that we meet our guideline number 3, which is quality architecture and materials, and I think that's what we're tweaking as we go along with all these different things.
So Bernie, you're very close to actually speaking a motion there.
Okay, I can try making the motion. We just
Hold on one
need
second,
comments.
Michelle
All right.
is
I just also wanted to bring back to the board's attention, I know we talked about this last time, but again, the second-story deck and balcony that's less than 15 feet from the
Yeah, I was going to
interior
bring
property
that up.
lines.
There's a back balcony or deck that's 16, which is fine. There's the small balcony off to the side. Again, given the dimensions of it, it's a very small balcony, so it's not a gathering space at all. You could almost barely put a chair out there. So, to my thinking, that would be fine, but nobody else has piped in on that. So I don't hear any objections to it, unless it got much bigger. So Bernie, if you could continue.
All right, Mr. Chair, thank you. So we would like to continue the project to the staff hearing officer? No.
No.
We would like to, oh, it's coming back here?
The applicant probably needs to just tell us, he can take these and go right to the staff hearing officer if he wants.
There's no staff hearings.
Because there's no modification to these drawings. Okay, so until we direct him that there is a modification, if we're keeping that existing garage and doing something else with it.
Well, do you want to suggest to us how much time you would like, or what you would like us to do?
We'd like to continue 4 weeks, if we could.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well then I'd like to move to continue the project for 4 weeks back to the full board with the following comments. One is a majority of the board would like to see a 2-car garage somewhere covered, 2 covered garage, and we appreciate the improvements, and we look forward to seeing a color board with quality architecture and materials, and that's my motion.
Okay, so that's your motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Second, and then follow up with comments to that motion. I think incorporating some of the comments with the windows are going to be important to consider, or to think about the casement operation versus a sliding, and also the issue of the windows in the bathrooms, to have the architect look at those.
I'd like to add one.
Did we get a second to the motion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, you show a water table, which is really nice, the way you have it curved down there below the balcony. So you probably should project the plaster a slight bit
Yes.
on your water tables.
Yeah. That was definitely.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Have the architect consider a 4-by rafter versus a 2-by rafter for the exposed rafter tails. Is that that's okay? It's okay.
There was a term I heard, and I've never heard it before, something about a pot, what was that?
Pot shelf.
Pot shelf, and is that through the open window and people are cooking?
It's like a plant.
There's some timber corbels that hold a little shelf there, and you put a little plant pot on it.
Oh, it's like
Outside the
a
kitchen window.
Flower box. It's like a flower box. What you put in it, we don't know. Yes.
Question. The issue about that front 11 feet appears that we're not able to do much, but are we collectively in favor of telling the applicant where we could accept ground cover in there, knowing that in reality that's not going to last too long, or how do you deal with that?
What I think is going to happen is that they might as well just not even do anything there and leave it dirt. If they do anything else, they're going to get slapped. So if it just remains dirt, then hard packed dirt like it is in these pictures, there's plenty of pictures that show that right next door.
But I think from a review board perspective, they're anticipating some landscaping there, so this is the solution.
Well, yeah. So you could do it. You could do the ground cover, and it will indeed become packed earth at some point if they start parking on it. But you look at some of these. See right there, just right next door. That's what that area looks like. So it's going to end up that way.
Do we want people to park there, or do we?
Well, you can't
want
stop
to but we can discourage it if we
Well, but I mean, reality is,
It's
in
not-
reality
not
is
part of
that
this-
reality
it's not
says
property.
people are going to park there, so should we encourage the applicant to spend the money to plant plants that are going to not survive? Should we just tell them, don't, just landscape up to the property line?
Unimproved, that's what I would do.
So I don't know if we can add that, whether the motion maker will accept that as a item.
May I ask another question? Were you planning any kind of a fence line along property line, or
I wasn't.
Just the six guys right
just to
there.
keep the cars from rolling right up to the front door, maybe? Because they probably would if you didn't put a fence.
So Bernie, you were the maker of the motion. So are you okay with saying the board would be okay with not providing landscaping in the right of way?
Is the board like that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah?
it's the only solution,
Okay.
really.
Okay.
Okay, and you're the second, so you're okay with that.
So I'm okay with that.
Anything else? We talked about the two-car garage, and we're going to let that be open to the designer as to how that works right now. Fred had a different comment about being attached, so he may not vote for this, I don't know.
Oh, I think it'd be detached.
If the applicant's willing to
Do a new two-car garage, I could live with that.
Okay. So is there any other comments to the motion? Okay, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstained? None. So we'll see you in 4 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The tree, I'm on Brinkerhoff,
Yeah.
it's in the back, and it's the same size or bigger than this. Isn't that amazing? And it gives avocados.
So we're going to stand adjourned since we have no other business on the agenda. Good night.